And I wanted it to also be something that Black women could watch and not feel like their pain was put on display, but it's not being addressed in a way that is actually helpful to Black women, because I see that all the time. How do we do that? How do we approach Black women's pain in film and in media and in the culture in such a way as to respect it and give it context that humanizes us, and that gives us a chance to work through it.
They can kill our bodies, but they'll never kill our soul. They can kill our bodies, but they'll never kill our soul. They can kill our bodies, but they'll never kill our soul. They can kill our bodies, but they'll never.
Hi guys, welcome to Charlie White Media Channel. I am Charlie White, director of Unsung, the movie released Juneteenth 2020. And this is Unsung Issues Episode 2, where we'll be discussing Black women's pain, how it is created, consumed, and felt. This episode is going to be broken up into 4 parts, and today we'll be starting with Black women's pain as it plays out in relationship with Black women's relationships with each other. I did invite some friends who are just really good at articulating social issues. They each have a platform that they work from in which they address a lot of issues that are relevant in society, especially to Black people, especially to women. I wanted to bring in other Black women with different backgrounds, different seasons of life, living in different places, to talk about an issue that, in spite of all of our differences, we have in common. And the point is that there's a certain underlying current of things that Black women have to deal with, no matter, even when, we generally have a good life, or you might necessarily be able to pick us out as someone who's particularly suffering. There's just so many little things that we might have to deal with that are creeping into our lives in one way or another, just by us being Black women. So in particular, I really want to draw your attention to an article called "Our Pain is Not Your Classroom" that I'm linking to below, where Miss Williams just does, I just think, an incredible job talking about Black women's pain in its how profound it is, and yet how simple it is, how it's really not quantified in just major things all the time. It's not necessarily about being constantly under the threat of violence and rape or whatever per se, although there are some Black women who live that life. It's about all of the little things that add up, death by 1,000 cuts, if you will. So anyway, I really want to get into this video, and so I'm going to introduce you to the film. Our main character, her name is Clara. She's the person whose pain is really explored through this film, but also her triumph. I want to say that I'm very proud of Unsung the movie in that we were able to capture Black women's pain in context that doesn't just leave us hurting. And I wanted to respect Black women's pain and how I portrayed it. And I wanted it to also be something that Black women could watch and not feel like their pain was put on display, but it's not being addressed in a way that is actually helpful to Black women, because I see that all the time. So I do think that it's important not to ignore Black women's pain, not to stop talking about it, not to stop portraying it, because it's real, and we don't want to reinforce this idea that Black women are somehow impervious to pain. But how do we do that? How do we approach Black women's pain in film and in media and in the culture in such a way as to respect it and give it context that humanizes us, and that gives us a chance to work through it? We are going to start with part 1 of Unsung Issues, episode 2, Black women's pain, how it is created, consumed, and felt. Thanks for joining us.
What's gonna happen to us, to our family?
What's gonna happen if we don't fight back, Claire? Is we ever gonna get to be a real family? They killing us, Clara! And they gonna keep on killing us.
What if you get caught? Caleb, don't you go following that preacher.
They can kill our bodies, but
Okay, you guys, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me. Um, I want to give each of you a chance to introduce yourselves. I've already introduced myself by this point, so I'm going to start. I'm just going to go clockwise the way I see it. So Lourdes, why don't you introduce yourself, followed by Aaron, and then Melody, and let's get started.
Hello, everyone. I am Lourdes Anita. I am an educator in Brooklyn. I also happen to be a podcast host. I am one of the co-hosts of the City Image podcast, where we talk about world issues from a Christian standpoint. We talk about, politics, pop culture, and get into all of that. And on the City Image podcast, I go by Lourdes Anita, standing in my personhood. So I'm glad to be here with you guys.
Thank you, Lourdes. Aaron?
Hey, I'm Erin Cole, and I'm the founder and artistic director of Art with a Heartbeat. And I come alongside organizations and individuals that are looking to tell a better story, whether that be through artistic means, just as a communicator, coaching them to do so. Yeah, that's Erin.
Thanks, Aaron. All right, Melody.
Hi, I'm Melody Gardner, and I am the founder of Tested Inc. It is a small business that consults nonprofits in the area of fundraising. And I'm also an author of a book that I republished called Christianity and Politics. And I'm having weekly Facebook Live sessions every Thursday at 11:18 in the morning. And we're talking about each chapter. And so can be now purchased, the second edition, on Amazon as of this week. But we are talking about each chapter each week for the next 4 weeks.
Yay, thank you, Melody. All right, I do want to point out, so all of the women in this episode are Christians, but that does not mean that if you're not a Christian, you're not welcome in this space. This is a safe space for Black women. It is being pre-recorded, but when I do decide to play it on social media, I will be giving everyone a chance to actually comment on it live, and I will be responding to the comments. So, but I did feel like this is such a sensitive issue too. I also wanted to kind of protect our space while we're talking about it. So just wanted to let everybody know that, that this is an inclusive space. Okay, so I'm gonna give you guys first a chance to just give me a general idea of your impression of the film, and specifically, I'm going to be peeking at my notes the whole time because I just want to make sure I don't miss anything. So what was your overall impression of the film? Your impression specifically of the portrayal of Black women, not just our pain, but just Black women, period. And then more specifically, what was your impression specifically of the portrayal of Black women's pain? How did you relate to it? How did it make you feel? And then what jumped out to you as particularly relevant for right now as far as the treatment of Black women's pain in our culture and society? So I'm just going to start with Melody. I'm just going to go the opposite way. All right, Melody, go ahead.
Yes. Well, for me, I was blown away at how you were able to capture that number of years in 36 minutes and do it in such a way that it felt real, and you could find yourself in various places. And I did feel like my heart was sadder more than it was jubilant, but celebrated where I could celebrate, but wanted to make sure that I was in the moment when it was sad. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like that you all did an exceptional job of pulling out the pieces of our story that rarely gets told, even in stories about our story. And it was very, you didn't overstate it, but you actually said it and portrayed it. And I'm just like, who says that? Who puts that in a film? And but it is so a part of us. That those elements that you brought out is so a part of us. And I sometimes think about that when, I look in the mirror and I'm just like, I did not get this shade, out of a love relationship. I know I didn't. And so of grandparents and great grandparents, it wasn't. I know it wasn't. And so I just feel like that you spoke to me in ways that almost probably no other film of our story has spoken to me. So I thank you so much for taking the time to take what was in your head and your heart and do an excellent job with it. So
thank you. I just want to jump in real quick. I'm going to respond to everything y'all say, but I just want to point out something that's I'll get into more deeply into another making of the film podcast or whatever. But I just want to say I didn't sit down with an agenda to write a story. God really gave this to me. He just gave it to me, and I just let it spill out on paper. And I feel like sometimes you'll hear me talking about it, even during this episode, as though I'm just another consumer, like I'm just somebody that went and watched it, just like everybody else, because I got to know it that way. Like I wrote down what God gave me, and I was getting to know it and getting acquainted with the story and getting acquainted with these characters the same way, you know, someone who's just watching it for the first time. Obviously, I've had more time with it. And I got some decision-making capacity. But so I'm really glad to hear that it resonated with you that way. But it actually hit me the same way, which sounds weird coming from the writer, but I promise. I didn't make it up. Like, I don't feel like I made it up. So anyway, Erin.
Well, first of all, I just want to say kudos to you for doing it. I work in film, and as a writer also, I mean, you for this not being like your goal, you're not trying to break into Hollywood. You did great. I mean, I watched it with another filmmaker, director friend of mine, and we were both like, what kind of money did she have?
The story. I'm telling you.
I mean, you know, we don't appreciate as much when we don't see the behind the scenes of how much it takes to go from one location to the next, and who did the makeup on those backs, and you know, just things like that. I really appreciated that were well thought out and, you know, executed. You know, it's hard. Making films is hard. It's hard. And so the fact that you did it, you got through it, and it's a whole 36 minutes. I mean, it's hard.
Okay. It's like 100 hours of footage, but that's okay.
Yeah. And then I could also see in it, you know, I wasn't there, but I could tell that a community came together. I could feel that presence in it. So I appreciate that. And also appreciate all the themes that you were able to introduce. I think that there's way more to it, obviously. And this is not a consumer film, it's a conversation film. And that's why I think that, you know, just the sacred and delicate approach to the strategy of how you share it with people is necessary. Because it's something that you need to do something afterwards, right? You don't just watch and leave. You need to come up with something else when you watch it. So I appreciate that a lot, and I love it about it.
Thank you. I knew I was doing the right thing getting a filmmaker on this episode. I just need somebody to understand. Girl, we'll talk about this. That's another conversation. Yeah, the making of the film. But you're right. There is a whole community behind it. There is no Hollywood greenlight money behind the film. There's just a bunch of people who believed in the project enough to help me make it happen. I'm not saying I didn't pay anybody. I paid some people a couple dollars, but trust me, it's not the money that it costs to make this one, like what it really costs. Like that money didn't pass through my hands. Like some of it did, but trust me, not like a fraction of the money passed through my hand. The rest of it was just God moving people to contribute. And that's one of the things that moves me about it is I just feel like he cares so much about us.
Yes. Girl, you had costumes, a carriage.
Listen, girl. Okay, a horse, a whole animal. We got animals. Okay. Don't get me started on the horse. Like I'm beautiful horse, by the way, but I'm kind of afraid of animals, so I didn't really like approach the horse. I just looked at look at God. He got a horse. Anyway, let's not get off track. Lourdes.
Yeah, I agree with everything that was said already. I think for me, what I understood about the film was the holistic portrayal of a Black woman. Like, yes, it was highlighted of our pain, but so you see a Black woman in a healthy marriage or in a healthy family and as a healthy mother with children. Like, that's not a constant portrayal that you see represented in media of Black women. Like, more often it is the slave tale or it is the slave narrative, and you just see the brokenness and the pain, and it's left there. But with this, it's like, so we understand that there's sort of a through line from all of our experiences that does incorporate our past, does incorporate our history, does incorporate our pain, but it doesn't leave us there. Like, we are able to get to health, and we are able to heal and have healthy relationships. Black women actually can be in healthy relationships with Black men. Black families are actually healthy despite all of the pain and the trauma that we have experienced. So I appreciated seeing that through line for there to be a holistic sense of a happy Black woman. It's like, oh, this is nice to see a Black woman smiling and with her family, even in the midst of the craziness of the world currently and our past.
I think that that's also going to be, I mean, we'll have more time getting so, but that's a critical part of the discussion of Black women's pain, because on the one hand, I don't like to minimize our pain, with the, I mean, Black girl magic is a great thing, but, it can get out of hand with the, we're so magical that we just let it roll off our backs. And I think what people need to understand, we've been able to get this far with faith, family, and community. Those have been really important aspects of why we can go through all of those things and basically still be killing it. So that's a that is an important aspect, I think, of balancing it all out. Because otherwise it could just be another painful thing to watch. Okay, let's talk about us. Let's talk about how we deal with our own pain as women. So we'll finish with the juxtaposition against men, I guess. So I have a clip here. I actually changed my mind about the clip I was going to use. And I'll tell you why in a minute. Okay. Let's look at a scene where Clara she's going through a healing moment. But it's a real moment of vulnerability and weakness. So that's why I chose it. Some people who watch this film, when they come away, they say, oh, Clara was so strong. And ultimately, at the end, she did. She had to be, right? We talked about that. She didn't have a choice. But I really hope to capture her vulnerability and to, platform that as well. But, we also see a consistent trend in the film about what happens when she gets to these moments. So let's look at this healing scene.
Just a little while longer, hold on. Just a little while longer, hold on. Just a little while longer, 'cause one of these days you shall be free. Hold on, just a little while longer. Hold on, just a little while longer. Hold on, just a little while longer. Mammy's having her baby, dear.
Okay. All right. So, like I said, I chose that scene, really for two reasons. One, because I wanted to capture Clara in a really vulnerable moment and not looking particularly strong, so that we can really talk about, like, where is this strength really coming from? But also because she's not the only Black woman in the scene. And actually, there's two Black women that you see in the scene, but there's a third who's referenced, who's having a baby, and she needs Clara. And Clara is in a state of her own need. And so there's a lot of pain being referenced in this scene. So I was glad to see a theme of Black women. Again, here, I'm talking like somebody who just watched the movie, like I didn't make the movie, but I told y'all that was going to happen. I was really glad to see a theme of Black women helping each other. I just feel like I don't see a lot of that in media. I feel like we get a lot of, Real Housewives. We get, just anytime people can catch a cat fight, that's what they're looking for. I mean, just between women in general, but definitely when it comes to Black women, I think, Black Panther was a special moment, but look how long it took for that to come around, right? In general, we don't get to see Black women helping each other. And I feel like I hear a lot of Black women say, I don't have female friends, which breaks my heart. Or they're always in competition with other Black women for men, or dogging other Black women, or, colorism, or who has the higher body count, who's, and sometimes the people who are having these conversations, they're not that unlike each other in a lot of ways. You know what I mean? But it's like, you're either out trying to out hoe each other, or trying to dog somebody for being a hoe. Or, you know what I mean? And the things that come out of our mouths in these very public conflicts, it almost sounds like somebody else wrote the script. Like, there are things that other people say to Black women to hurt us. And it seems like we've adopted the language to hurt each other. But, again, that's not my reality. Thank God. I'm not, first of all, I'm just not even willing to participate. So it takes two. I don't do it. So I was glad to see in this film a theme of Black women helping each other, because that's the life I live. That's the world I know, and I would love to see more of that in media. So in real life, I'd like to ask just anybody just to jump in. What is your experience with Black women helping each other, and how has that made a difference in you being able to overcome trauma? And by trauma, it could be something specific to you, or it could just be the overall weight of Black womanhood in this culture.
I'll share. I've always really, like, even from childhood, I've just felt like I've had really rich relationships with Black women, all the way through college, in my young adulthood, and those kinds of things. It could be because a lot of those contexts were Christian contexts, and there was almost like a common, almost morality or compass that we all were coming from, of being kind to one another and really considering one another's needs. And I mean, I've always felt listened to whenever I've, just were sobbing. I've always felt like Black women listened. And I might be able to think of one or two times when there was an impatience, with my pain. But for the most part, there really has been more of a, just letting me cry or letting me talk through my frustrations or whatever the case may be. I do believe that the Christian bond was probably the reason why I've had such sweet relationships with Black women. But I can see how, it doesn't take much to be able to see how it really could be bad. And sometimes it is really bad. But that just hasn't been my experience.
Yeah, I grew up as one of those girls that was like, I don't like females. I don't have female friends. Like, I was raised in a project. So it was me and my cousins against everybody else.
Oh, God, that dynamic.
Honey, it was like, okay, say something else to me, I'm gonna get my 31 cousins to come for you. Like, it's whatever. Yeah, so I growing up, I didn't have like really healthy relationships with women outside of my immediate family members, and being from a very large family of West Indian women, it was like I didn't feel like I needed other women or I needed relationships with anyone outside of my immediate context. But to that point of like, Christian relationships, like it wasn't until I really got involved in the church, and I like my church is very big on community, I started to like heal from that sense of like bitterness towards women and see like the value of letting women in and letting down my guard and I can't be out here calling women B's and H's and all this other kind of stuff, because then it's like, what is my view of myself as a woman? And then, I'm projecting that onto another sister of like, okay, I have to edify the way that I speak about women so that I can, have healthier dynamics. And then if I don't want men talking about us like that, like, why am I as a woman saying those things about other women? Yes, I think now that I am in Christian community, the women in my community have been a major part of my healing in being able to have sleepovers with them, and like for, to share each other's pain and pray with one another. Like, I know that there are women that I can call right now and they're going to go before the throne on my behalf. I also have been able to, develop deep friendships that I've kept over my life. Like I have best friends since junior high school. But there really is like, I've had to look at the way that I talk about women and I think about other women to like, bring down that barrier to where I am open to having close relationships with women in my life and not see other women as competition or see other women as a threat or see them as an enemy, but as a sister.
I think that threat competition thing is outwardly projected because in our society, like, it's only going to be one of us.
Right.
And so, okay, it's not really that I want to like challenge you, sis, but I want that spot.
Right.
So I'm gonna do what I need to do to be the one, to be that one, go to whatever industry and whatever sport and whatever thing in school and whatever job. That's unfortunate, but outside of that, personally, I have experienced the same very rich relationships where my sisters like help me see my pain. When I'm trying to walk over it, gloss over it, like it doesn't exist. Hey, like, thank you. And so, and I know that there is an innate connection that we have as Black women. We can't help it. We see each other. There are things that there are preambles that we don't have to go over. You don't ask me about my hair because
That's a good word. Yeah.
And so, and I think that is something that in my life has pushed me away or made it harder to befriend my white sisters for a long period of time. I have seasons, but I have yet to have a white sister that's a friend throughout the course of my life. Still in my life. There's in the regular rhythm of my life. And it's not intentional. I don't really know what happened.
Context.
But I do feel like there's a sisterhood. There are these little things that happen in some of those relationships that make it like, that's exhausting. I don't really feel like doing that.
Yeah.
I'd rather deal with you. So
yeah, I know. Okay, so I have some white women that have been in my life like sisters for like 20 years. But I have those moments as well, even with them, where it's like, I need to talk to a sister. Like, I don't want to have to explain. Like you said, there's preambles. I think that's a great word that we don't have to go over. And I think that that's the reason why, even though, the white women in my life, the context that we share is also our Christian faith, and that does help create a space of healing where people can sort of let down their walls. We're exploring our vulnerability in a safe space, in our understanding that we're all, just in a sinful world, and that this is where we are, and there's no need for a competition because we're all saved by grace, and that does create that safe space. And so that is the context with my relationships with, I think, almost all my relationships with white women. It's not the context of all my relationships with Black women, but I think it's the reason why Black women are best able to help each other more than anyone else. So, and then it's not because, there's some things where the help you need it to come from someone who's in a better position than you, because you need them to open a door, make a move, advocate, etc. But there's some kind of help, in particular when it comes to just processing and addressing pain, that you need it to come from someone who gets you, who can empathize, you don't have to explain certain things to. And I think that's why it makes me really angry. Not just sad, I said sangry. That's probably the right word, because it's sad and angry when I see conflict between Black women being platformed like it's, you know, some cute spectacle. It's not a spectacle. It's not funny. You know, with everything that we have to go through, like we really can't afford that. And I can't imagine, you know, I'm sure that women who were enslaved, they had their conflicts. Matter of fact, I know that, you know, there's records. You know, there was conflict over men and stuff like that. But we sort of had that mentality overall in general. Like, we made it. There's just no way. I mean, you had to foster other women's children. You had to hope that there was some woman somewhere who, when your child got sent to where they got sent, you know, who took your child in. You had, excuse me, you just had a common struggle that you were so aware of. You know what I mean? And I just, in this film, a lot of people try to help Clara one way or another. Her husbands try, you know, Annabelle tries in her own little way to help Clara. But, you know, who do you really see? Who can really get next to her and get down on their knees with her? Who is there? It's the Black women together that are really helping each other through and really building each other up. The people who were most helpful to Claire in this film are Black women. And I think in reality, if we want to get out of some of the rest that we're in, we have to adopt that mentality, because it tends to be competition over men, or just even, I think, being at the bottom of the barrel of the caste system, just wanting to not be on the bottom. So you got to step on somebody, and you don't got nobody to step on but each other. You know what I mean? I think that plays into the dynamic with Black men as well. I don't feel like that needs to be the thing that's highlighted in the media all the time. Like, I think that if you want to be honest, then you'll give us a breadth of experiences and a representation that covers Black women's relationships in a lot of ways. But I think that when you see that type of conflict between Black women, when you see Black women joking about other Black women's pain, oh, she got it beat down. Did you see that? Like, when I hear stuff like that, I'm like, that's coming out of your pain, because you can't deal with your pain. And so you kind of revel in someone else's. But I honestly think that the best person to minister to that pain is another Black woman, especially another Black woman who's been through similar things. Okay, guys, so we are going to stop it right there. I realize it's a little bit abrupt. I didn't really record this in 4 separate segments, so I'm kind of just having to cut it off. Please join us for our next part of our series, Black Women's Pain in Relationship with or to White Women. But before that, obviously we didn't get to cover every single thing in this particular segment or this particular part of the series. I would love to hear more from you in the comments about your personal experiences, about experiencing and relating to and overcoming Black women's pain in context of your relationships with other Black women. Like I said, there's just no way to really fully grasp and cover the entirety of a Black woman's experience in America in one little vlog. But again, you help with that by adding to the comments and letting us know what you thought about the video. What are some things that you would add, that you would include? I really think it would have been really great to get into more detail about what it's like of being pit against other Black women in competition in society. I think that that's something that we didn't get into as much as we could have. So yeah, share your stories, share your comments. We'd love to hear from you. And of course, please like, subscribe, and follow to keep up with our series and more from Charlie White Media. Thanks for joining us. See you again.